Ladies and gentlemen, here is Sifare on Time for Hemp. Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to an encore presentation of Time for Hemp Live. Time for Hemp Live is heard every Monday through Friday on AmericanFreedomRadio.com from noon to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, which is 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I ask that you and your friends make it a point to tune in. With that said, let's take Time for Hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they spent. Take another look and take some time for hemp. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. An acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp. Yeah.
Thank you for taking time for hemp. I'm your host, Casper Leitch. You are listening to the live broadcast of Time for Hemp on AmericanFreedomRadio.com and on AM/FM stations all across America. I should record that. I mean, that's exactly how I start the show every day. Those of you who are listening to the show every day probably even lip sync that with me. Well, I hope so, because I love the people at American Freedom Radio. They are a hard working group of people. And every Tuesday, I'm fortunate enough to be able to have on my program as a joint host a hardworking activist and someone I'm very proud to be able to call my friend, Kelly Kriston from KDK Distributors. Kelly, thank you for taking time for hemp.
Always, lots of fun. How's it going today?
Pretty mellow today, Kelly. While we got a minute, I'd like to have you tell people about how it is more healthy to use a vaporizer and how they can get one from you.
Absolutely. From a health perspective, I'll tell you, when you vaporize as opposed to burning, when you eliminate the combustion, there are well over 20 carcinogens created by combustion. So they're eliminated, no rolling paper glue. So from a health perspective, pretty awesome. And I like to give away a couple vaporizers. I do so through Treating Yourself magazine. Every issue we give away two to a needy medical patient anywhere in the world who basically can't afford a vaporizer but could certainly use one. All you have to do is send me an email, kellyk@valleyofgreen.com. Let me know your situation. Send us a picture, and hey, we'll be happy to send one out. We love giving them away.
And that's very kind of you to do that, because when people need not only good medication but a good source of getting their medications into their systems, and as you said, the cost of medications alone are expensive, and so
without a doubt, a lot of people are on a limited income, so being able to pay rent and buy food and even hopefully get some medication, let alone think about getting a vaporizer, is definitely not within their reach, and those are the people that I need to try and get a vaporizer to. And I know there's a lot more out there. Keep sending the stuff in, because we certainly giving them away.
Well, again, that's one of the reasons why I consider you to be a hero in the marijuana movement, and I can understand why so many people around the world, and especially in Canada, your home country, love you. We do have a large audience in Canada. We have a large audience around the world. Yesterday, we had guests on from Thailand, and we're having a guest on from Thailand again today, Bangkok, as a matter of fact. We're going to be talking about the high-frequency active auroral research program. For those of you who are not acquainted with that, the acronym for that is HAARP. And it's a very interesting topic, I must say. Kelly and I have been taking a good look at it these past couple of weeks, and it's kind of mind-boggling, don't you think, Kelly?
Oh, I'm absolutely blown away. I have to admit that I was unaware that HAARP existed up until a very recent that you asked me to be on the show, and this was going to be happening on the show. So of course I've checked it out.
Well, we're going to take a commercial break here and pay our bills, and when we come back, we're going to sing some songs with the HAARP here at Time for Hemp.
THCF Medical Clinics are the premier medical marijuana physicians clinic in the USA. THCF has offices across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan, and in California, Oregon, Washington State, Montana, Nevada, and Colorado. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 medical marijuana patients to obtain their permits to legally possess, use, and grow medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, MS, or other neurodegenerative diseases, gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, IBS, AIDS, cancer, spastic conditions, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188. Or go to hemp.org. That's HEMP.org.
Online, all the time, your gateway to the world. AFR! American Freedom Radio. Give it to them.
Listen to the Vinny Eastwood Show on American Freedom Radio. Live worldwide weekdays 5 till 7 Central. It's the Vinny Eastwood Show on American Freedom Radio.
Yeah, baby, I do. I wake, I bake, and I do whatever it takes to get me through the day because I got a full plate to deal with, and that is fighting back in this war on drugs. I would encourage you to get up off that couch and quit watching Dancing with the Stars. I mean, really, who cares if Kirstie Alley can do the two-step? At her age, she should be lucky to even do one step. Thank you. Go to green-aid.com. First thing you do, make a donation. Second thing you do, read what's going on there and find out how you can make a difference in your neck of the woods. On the program today, we are stepping outside the box, and we are going to be learning about the HAARP project. And my joint host, God, I love saying joint, and is on the program today from KDK Distributors, Kelly Kriston. Kelly, thank you for being on the program and stepping outside the box with me as well.
Well, I'm always interested in being educated. This seems really quite a bit above my head. I've been trying to read a little bit about it, and there's obviously an awful lot going on there. So I'm interested in hearing what we get, what's going on.
Well, we are very lucky today to be joined by Eric Dubay. He is from Bangkok, and one night in Bangkok, and you know the world is your oyster. And so he's been studying the New World Order and a variety of things that's been going on in the planet, and he has a very interesting website he's going to be telling you about. But first thing I want to talk about is this groovy thing called HAARP. Eric, thank you for taking time for hemp.
Thanks for having me. I've always got time for hemp.
Groovy. Now, a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, and I can't believe it, don't know to this day what HAARP is. So can you, in a nutshell, and I mean in a nutshell, spit that out?
Sure thing. So HAARP stands for the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, which is a pretty benevolent title for what it really is. But basically, it's an ionospheric heater that uses computer-controlled radio frequency transmitters to emit steerable electromagnetic beams. So what that means is there's a big antenna array, and it's shooting electromagnetic radio frequency into the ionosphere and then manipulating the ionosphere in various ways.
Yeah, I would encourage people after this program to Google HAARP and learn more about it. But what Eric's talking about, too, is not just one antenna, but it's a whole bunch of antennas on a large acreage of ground. And I think he'll be letting us know there's quite a few of them around the world. We have one up in Alaska in the middle of nowhere. Jesse Ventura went up to check it out. In the middle of nowhere. I mean, you really got to drive, take horse sleds, get Santa Claus and his reindeers to fly you in. They still got 2 gates around this thing. So it's a top secret project, and it's highly funded by government dollars all around the world, not just our government, but varieties of governments, right?
That's right. Yeah, there's HAARP-like facilities in somewhere between 6 to 10 different countries. There's not a definite number out there but Norway definitely has one, Puerto Rico has one, Russia has one, and there's the big one there in Gakona, Alaska, that you're mentioning about.
Kelly?
Yeah, this is pretty interesting stuff. I mean, like you say, a benevolent name and very generic type of stuff they say they're doing. They also claim that you can relatively easy get access, according to what I read in Wikipedia, that that it is open to civilians, maybe not on a regular basis, but people can get into the facility. So maybe it's not so super secret as you think, Casper.
They do have open houses once every 2 years, so they do let civilians in there once in a while, just to keep the benevolent face. That website that you're probably reading, the HAARP official website, again, that wasn't up until basically it was exposed to the point that they needed to counteract the people exposing them, so they put up their own version of what HAARP can and can't do, but it's quite at odds with a lot of things like their own patents that they own. Whereas they say it isn't used for weather manipulation. The patent's owned by Raytheon, which owns HAARP, and the patents are clearly for weather manipulation, creating nuclear-sized explosions without radiation, power beaming systems, detection systems for missiles, and many other effects as well.
Now, you said that it was originally designed to be a friendly type of tool, something that would benefit mankind. And I've, in research, found that the individual who actually invented HAARP is now against HAARP. Well, he's passed away, and now his son's carrying the torch. But it really can supposedly do a lot of damage if used wrong. And this is information that is very old information. It's from Tesla's notes. A lot of people don't know who Tesla is.
Well, I think fooling around with the ionosphere could be dangerous. I mean, I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination, but anytime you're fooling around with something as critical as the ionosphere, I would suspect that there can be tragic results.
Well, according to the military, that when they fire off the radio signals, and they do it in such a way, I mean, like our radio station is doing 50 megahertz, I think, and this thing's got an enormous amount of energy behind it. It actually separates the ionosphere, separates it for a short period of time. And many scientists are concerned that while that's separated, what's filling in that void? Now, Eric, one of the things that's really struck you of interest, and has struck a lot of other researchers on this particular topic of HAARP, seems to be how shortly before earthquakes and tsunamis, these HAARP facilities are actually being activated and emitting radio signals.
Right. So, I mean, one of the things that the HAARP facility is able to do is trigger quakes. Radio tomologists have used small-scale HAARP-like radio tomography to search for oil and natural gas, shooting it down into the earth, and you get a reading back. But it creates these vibrations. They've actually caused mini quakes and tremors using millions of times less power than HAARP has. So it definitely has the ability to create quakes. And I've been researching the evidence of recent earthquakes and tsunamis and hurricanes, which are happening while HAARP is in use. Because there's actually a HAARP magnet in Kona, Alaska, that registers, and it's live, and you can see it on the web, and it's got an archive of every day. It registers when HAARP is active and inactive, and it actually shows the exact frequencies and everything, so you can see how high a scale it's on. So that kind of started my research when I found out that HAARP was turned on either before and or during the 2004 Indonesian tsunami, the 2005 Katrina hurricane, the 2008 China earthquake, 2010 earthquake, the 2010 Chile earthquake, and just now with this Japan tsunami, it was turned on for 6 hours before, right up until the tsunami hit, and then it went off again after a week of complete silence. It seemed to turn it on 2 or 3 times a month on average. But anyway, it does line up with these. So this got me researching, looking into these magnetometer readings, and then I found a whole bunch more of it. I can continue with it, Mike, or if you'd like to step in.
Now, when you say you're taking these readings are high when these particular activities are happening, how odd is it, do they maybe just happen to have it turned on at that time? I mean, like you say, maybe only a couple or 3 times a month. Is it, during specific times of the day, or is there any kind of information like that it's maybe just a fluke that it's on at these particular times at a high rate?
Right. So if it was just those particular times that it was on, that wouldn't be quite enough condemning evidence. There's other things such as auroral-like light I've been seeing in the sky just before the China, Chile, and 2007 Japan quakes. Now, the high-frequency Auroral research program, one of the things that it's known to do is when you manipulate the ionosphere with these radio waves, it creates an aurora borealis-like effect. And there's actually footage you can see on YouTube, 30 minutes right up until the actual quake. Chinese people are videotaping these lights in the sky, and they're saying, oh, this is strange and beautiful, and not knowing what's about to happen. And then, everything starts shaking and the earthquake hits. So they don't usually have aurora borealis lights there in China, especially not just before an earthquake. And those same lights were then seen before the Chile quake as well. And those were reported on CNN and NBC, I believe. I've got the clips on my website. So
yeah, that's one of the things that I thought to be of interest was how on one of the news clips that I was studying, you're right, a variety of major news media outlets on all 3 of those occasions did some film footage of those particular lights, saying that they did not understand why they were in the air, and that perhaps they weren't sure, but perhaps because they had occurred about 30 minutes before each of these major quakes took place, they might be able to start using these particular lights as some sort of sign of a natural occurrence about to take place. They gave no indication that the aurora lights had been man-made. They simply stated that they were unusual lights in the sky that occurred before each of those quakes. And you're right, when I was studying the HAARP project, it states at the very beginning of the project, in its original paperwork, that it would be able to create lights like you see in the northern lights in the sky. And they wanted to find out more of what it could do. All right, I'm done.
Yeah. So sure, as I continued to research into these things, then I started noticing how these quakes have also seemed to be very politically timed and positioned. For instance, the Haiti earthquake, it was exactly 6 weeks before the Haiti elections that happened, and the epicenter was only 10 miles from the Haitian capital. Not only this, but the U.S. Defense Information Systems were already in Haiti performing natural disaster relief drills the day before it hit, and then they just happened to go live with the drills when the earthquake actually hit. You see that happen a lot, like in 9/11. FEMA was already there in New York, coincidentally on 9/10, or before the 7/7 bombings, the same thing happened. So that's kind of a footprint of these kind of planned events. Another thing, the U.S. Heritage Foundation think tank released an article within 3 hours of that Haiti quake outlining how the U.S. could use the crisis to their political advantage and how they should manipulate this event to look good in the press and to help them out while guaranteeing aid, but only conditional aid, so that they basically have to accept whatever we want them to do. And they did close down all their airports. The U.S. military went in there, and much like Katrina, instead of helping the people, they were more helping the corporations and shooting people that were supposedly looting. So eyewitnesses said there isn't really any looting happening.
Outrageous. Again, I have a hard time making the leap that this particular program could be responsible to do these types of things. I mean, it's beyond my comprehension is basically what I need to say. Obviously, a lot of more than the average coincidence or this, that, or the other thing, and putting it all together. If this is the case, obviously it's a pretty scary thing that they got going up there, and obviously we need to be they need to be more transparent and confirm that they're not doing these types of things. Because I'll tell you, that's a pretty scary prospect for anybody to have those powers, to be able to do those types of things.
Right. I mean, yeah, just the ability for anybody to control the weather. There's ethical questions that come into play, whether this kind of technology should even be in anybody's hands.
Well, and it's amazing, too, that so many people are unaware of this, because it is in so many countries. And it's a variety of scientists that are thinking of this. It's not just a handful of people who consider themselves to be conspiracy theorists, but a large number of scientists around the globe now are taking a hard look at the effects of HAARP and what's actually occurring when these are charged into the atmosphere, and before and after. And that's another thing I thought was amazing was when the Japan quake hit, there was a lot of seismic activity around the entire planet shortly before and after. None of that was reported. The only thing that was reported was the Japan quake, but we had a huge amount of seismic activity in an odd number of places on the planet that particular day.
That's true. And that quake, then tsunami, was kind of strange in that it had, they're calling pre-shocks or whatever, as it kind of built up these earthquakes to the big one, and then had aftershocks after that, the kind of typical way. But those pre-shocks make me suspicious as well as to if they are using a HAARP-like thing to induce the tsunami and earthquakes, then that would make sense as they're building it up and shooting it at a targeted point. The earthquakes begin rising in complexity until the final.
Well, we're going to take a commercial break here. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this on Time for Hemp.
Treating Yourself Journal is written by patients for patients and has grown into a worldwide source of remarkable information. This journal provides patients and their caregivers information on different methods of growing medical marijuana for themselves and introducing healthier methods of taking their medicine. TreatingYourself.com is the largest, most comprehensive medical marijuana website on the net and is focused on the responsible use of marijuana as it applies to medicine. Treating Yourself Journal can be found in many bookstores worldwide, like Borders and Barnes & Noble. Look for it at your favorite store. If you can't find it, Demand it. Then go to treatingyourself.com and buy 2 subscriptions. One for you and one as a gift for a friend. Treating Yourself Journal, the most valuable resource for the global medical marijuana movement.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Freedom Files. Weekdays, Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Central.
On American Freedom Radio.
Watch the clock to smoke your pot. You should know you're not alone. If your grass is like molasses hydro-grown, that gets you stoned. If you're counting the hours, watching the minutes for that special time when everyone hits it, take it from me, you're really not that far away. Roll me something fat and long, pack me a bowl, or fill me a bong. It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. It's 420 somewhere. This smoke break is gonna make my afternoon when I get high. Even if it's my last bud, I'll smoke it up. It'll be alright. I've been sitting here waiting for what seems like a year. My Jamaican connection said he'd meet me here. If the phone's for me, tell him he better be on his way. And roll me something fat and long, pack me a bowl, fill me a bong. It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. It's 420 somewhere. I spent all my cash, replenished my stash, but it's only 1:45. At a moment like this, I can't help but wonder, what would Willie do? He said, fire that thing up. Roll me something fat and long, pack me a bowl, fill me a bong. It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. Roll me something fat and long, pack me a bowl, fill me a bong. It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. I don't care. It's 420 somewhere.
Yeah, baby, it is 420 somewhere. It is 420 now here on Time for Hemp Live all around the world on AmericanFreedomRadio.com and on AM, FM stations all across America. I want to thank all of my friends up in Canada for tuning in today, and for everybody who's joining in, thank you for sharing us with your audience. We are stepping outside the box today. We are discussing a project called HAARP, HAARP, something that's been in the news since the 90s, at least. I've known about for a long time. Always had my attention, been a little fascinated by it, and it's becoming more and more newsworthy, it seems. One of the things that has brought HAARP to the attention of the national media, and Eric, I think you can elaborate more on this, and I'll pass it on to my joint host, Kriston from KDK Distributors, is that around these facilities that have been established airline pilots and news teams have noticed when they've been up in the air, whether they've been doing traffic reports or just commercial flying, that around these facilities, for some odd reason, cloud formations take on a specific structure. One example is that it totally blew the minds of some of the pilots how several thousand cloud formations came like bubbling out like a ripple, evenly spaced. Each one was evenly spaced. Totally mind-blogging.
Exactly. So in HAARP, there's these clouds that are in rows, so they're just like long, fluffy rows that are moving along at a steady pace through the sky. And you can see these, again, on YouTube. Just type in HAARP clouds, and all over the world, not just near the HAARP stations, but all over the world, you can see these cloud formations, and you can see for yourself that this is just not something that's possible naturally. There has to be some sort of manipulation going on here, and it is perfectly characteristic of what HAARP can do. And these clouds have been seen over Japan, for instance, over the past couple of years, and there's actually been some recent YouTube videos up that are claiming to be on the day of the tsunami. And so I recommend checking out those cloud formations. Another mysterious thing as well, I don't know if you guys have been following lately, is all the dead fish and birds. They've just been dying off en masse, millions of them, birds dropping out of the sky and fish just turning over in the sea.
Yes, that's just, also a new phenomenon.
Yeah. So that would be, again, characteristic. If you're shooting and heating up the ionosphere, shooting this kind of ray up and bouncing back down, you're going to be having excited molecules throughout the air and the water. For Japan, if you're targeting the water to create an earthquake/tsunami, and expect to see dead fish and birds. I also saw reports of dolphins. I'm not sure where this was, but they were scarred and burned, and they were just coming up on shore by the thousands. Another thing, just strange, what if this isn't a man-made thing? What natural occurrence is happening right now that could be causing all of these mysterious mass animal deaths?
Kelly, pass to you.
Well, of course, when you mentioned the HAARP cloud, I went to YouTube and I've looked at a couple of them. The one over Japan is mind-boggling. It almost looks like wind-swept sand surface with little undulations in it. It's mind-boggling that was the formation. Now, I got asked the question: is this something that is a normal phenomena that happens during an earthquake or tsunami? Does anybody have any information on that?
I've looked into it. People have claimed that the earthquake lights have been around for a while, and it claimed that these clouds have been around. But then the other people claim the opposite on the internet. You can always find both views, and I guess in my own mind I could find both views. But really, what is an auroral light display doing a half an hour before an earthquake as a natural occurrence? Nobody can explain to me scientifically how or why that would happen. Same with these cloud formations, just my own intuition looking at these. I can't see what natural process would just happen to be creating these around the time of these earthquakes. But it makes much more sense to me in light of HAARP and weather manipulation technology. Just kind of, again, putting the pieces together. Before the Japanese quake, Hazel Takana, Japan's finance minister, went on the record reporting that he was threatened with eco-terrorism if he didn't sign an agreement with Western bankers. You can see this on our website as well. Look for Benjamin Fulford interviews Hazel Takana. So again, eco-terrorism, and then we see this happen in Japan. cloud formations. It was the fourth largest earthquake in all of history, the largest ever to strike Japan since we've been able to record the Richter scale. So evidence is the actual size and timing and position of the quakes and tsunamis, as I mentioned.
Certainly some tremendous coincidental stuff for sure, and as more people put it together, I don't know. It's still kind of out there for me that this could be possible. And one thing that I'm interested in is how is it possible for them to do it, say, from Alaska all the way to Japan? I mean, can they direct their signal? I don't understand how they would be capable of bending that signal so that it would reach a specific part of the Earth other than where the facility is located. As they claim that mostly it goes straight up. So if it goes straight up, really they can only manipulate, I'm assuming, what's above them. Are they able to manipulate anywhere in the world? I don't understand how they can send the signal.
Well, they do have stations in more than just Alaska, firstly, and the patents come from based on Tesla technology, and Tesla bragged that he's able to create basically a death ray that was able to send a pinpoint bit of energy anywhere in the world. He said he could literally split the world in half. That's what he claimed. And I mean, he came up with some amazing inventions that were cut up. And that was back in 1915.
Right. Very interesting.
I don't know the scientific of it all myself either. But
a lot of Tesla's work was confiscated by the United States government and kept under lock and key, and later became functioning aspects of today's technology. Tesla was proven right originally, and once his work was shown to be true, our U.S. government began to build more and more patents off of his work, thus keeping control over his inventions and technologies. So, and I also know that anything that is being owned and operated and controlled by the U.S. military is being used by the U.S. military. Now, it is either being used as a weapon or it is being used to help us use our weapons, such as radio technology. But for our government to secretly pump billions of dollars into this project, not really talk about it all that much, there's got to be something that the U.S. government is getting out of it. And it has been shown in the past to be able to change the direction that trout, when you would shoot it into certain directions, that trout would go when they go upstream, and change the directions of the way schools of fish would go. And in the past, again, it did show a variety of surprising results. So our U.S. government must have a true interest in this to be pumping a lot of money into it. Otherwise, it would be a council project dead on the table, and that money would be going into another aspect. Eric?
Yeah. HAARP and the patents around it were originally controlled by Arco Power Technologies, which is a subsidiary of Atlantic Richfield Company, one of the biggest oil companies in the world. That was then bought out by E-Systems in 1994, which is one of the biggest intelligence contractors in the world, and they do work for the CIA, among others. And they actually make $1.8 billion in annual sales to intelligence agencies alone, and have $800 million for black projects that are so secret that even the U.S. Congress isn't told how the money is being spent. And E-Systems was just bought out by Raytheon, and that's one of the largest defense contractors in the world. The land that it's on is U.S. Air Force owned as well, and it's maintained by U.S. Navy and U.S. Air Force personnel. Meanwhile, they claim to be a civilian research program because they work with certain universities. But it's clearly CIA, Raytheon, defense contractor, funded by oil companies from the get-go.
And one of the reasons why the oil companies are so interested in it is because, as I was watching information about it, the individual who invented it, and as he was talking about it, they were able to use the HAARP project and to find oil. And when they would play it over a certain area of the land, it would go boom, and that would be oil. And then they play it over another part of the land, and it might go boom. That would be a different type of crude oil. Anywhere in the world they could find it. So for the United States, just for that alone, it was of interest. Well, we got to take a commercial break here, but when we come back, we're going to be talking more about HAARP. Google it. Learn more about it. We're going to be talking about it next week as well here on Time for Hemp.
Medical clinics are the premier medical marijuana physicians clinic in the USA. THCF has offices across the United States from Hawaii to Michigan, and in California, Oregon, Washington State, Montana, Nevada, and Colorado. THCF Medical Clinics has helped approximately 150,000 medical marijuana patients to obtain their permits to legally possess, use, and grow medical marijuana. If you have chronic pain, MS, or other neurodegenerative diseases, gastrointestinal disorders such as GERD, IBS, AIDS, cancer, spastic conditions, seizure disorders, or glaucoma, call us at 1-800-723-0188 or go to hemp.org. That's HEMP.org. Hi, I'm a California hemp worker. A lot has happened to the hemp industry within the last year. The hemp industry went from being criminal to legitimate. It also means a lot of new American jobs. I work very hard, and I want to be compensated fairly. That is where the United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 5 comes in. Not only has the United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 5 fought for the rights of Americans to have access to medical marijuana, but they also fight for my rights to have fair wages, medical and dental benefits, and a good retirement. If you're a hemp worker like I am, consider joining the United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 5 and do your part to keep jobs in the United States. For more information or to join, go to ufcw5.org or call 877-655-3483. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union Local 5. One vision, one voice, one union.
Warning. Warning. American. Warning. American Freedom Radio is habit forming. American Freedom Radio is habit forming. Use the truth carefully.
Listen to Time for Hemp, hosted by Casper Leitch. Afternoons, Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Central. Only on American Freedom Radio.
Well, now, chocolate cake makes my poor stomach ache, and all those pills are too much for me to take. I don't like cocaine because it makes me all uptight, but coffee and reefer makes me feel alright.
Yeah, baby, coffee and reefer does make me feel all right. A little bit of caffeine, a little toke here. I'm down in front of my computer doing what I can to fight back against the monstrous bills that have been passed in the United States Congress and then put into place all around the world. If you want to make a difference, go to green-aid.com. See what you can do to make a difference. On the program today, my joint host, KDK distributor founder, Kelly Kriston, and I are learning together about HAARP from Eric Dubay. Next week, we are going to talk about HAARP one more time, and then we're going to be spending Tuesdays again on pot and I like spending any day on pot. But we are going to be having Dr. Nick Begich on next Tuesday. He is the father of the HAARP movement, in the sense that his books and his studies on this project have been ongoing since the project started. He is up in Alaska, and he has been a person who has been talking about the different uses that the military has for this project. And it has been very interesting having this conversation with Eric Dubay. And Kelly, I pass the questions to you.
Yes. Well, as they move forward, the kind of money that they're pouring into it, obviously it has some kind of dollar value or military value. Obviously, if they can actually do these things and manipulate this kind of stuff, I guess there's no need for weapons of mass destruction, because it is sounds like probably the most powerful weapon of mass destruction that we know about.
Yeah, most definitely. And not only powerful and massive, but covert, because it's the perfect covert way to, like Hazel Takana said, inflict eco-terrorism on your enemies. So I wonder if in the near future Japan is going to be giving in to some demand that they weren't previously going to because of this. They were warned, apparently, of eco-terrorism, and then it happens. So now what will the effects be? Another thing I was thinking to mention, here in Thailand, where I live, just a couple days after the Japan quake, we hit the biggest cold snap that Thailand has ever had. It's during the hot season here. It's usually over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 degrees Celsius, and it got down to 16, 17 degrees Celsius and stayed there for about a week. And there was no signs of cloud cover the whole time. And so this is supposed to be the hottest time in Thailand, here in Bangkok where I am. Yet, just after that quake, they're on the news saying we're coming down from Japan. It was colder than it even gets here in cold season. It doesn't even get that cold during the cold season here. So people were wearing hats and everything. It was just completely out of the ordinary. I talked to a bunch of people, in their 50s, 60s. They'd never experienced that cold, especially not during the hot season here. So another piece of evidence that just really got me on track about researching this stuff.
Yeah, well, you would think with causing such a major tragedy, there would or a major event to occur, like an earthquake and a tsunami, that there would be some other type of repercussion from creating such an event, such as the weather that you've experienced in Thailand.
Yeah. If you're tampering with the ionosphere in such a way, you may be pulling down all of that cold air down. Could be something along those lines. It got me onto the USGS website, the U.S. Geological Survey, where I found this very telling graph I put on my website. In the past 15 years or so, since HAARP has been fully functional, there's been a huge spike in the number of high Richter scale quakes around the world. You can look at the chart, and about 10 times the number of 6.0 and above magnitude Richter scale quakes have been hitting just in the past 15 years, whereas for the past 100 years or so that we've had the technology available to document, it's just, varying in a little degree. A big jump right in the middle of the 90s when HAARP actually became fully functional with its full antenna array. Another interesting coincidence.
Well, we got about a minute left, Eric. Eric, we got about a minute left, so why don't you give a shout-out to your website so people can find it and learn more?
Sure. I'm at AtlanteanConspiracy.com. And you can find all this HAARP information about halfway down on the right. Click on the HAARP topic. We've got documentaries, articles, links to many other websites, links to documentation of all the information I've been saying here, as well as links to other people's websites, like Dr. Nick Begich, who you're going to have on the show next week.
Yep. Kelly, want to give a shout-out?
Yeah, you bet. We got the Treating Yourself Expo coming up. We're going to be attending, of course, and I'd like to see a lot more. I guess we're going to see you there June 3rd to 5th in Toronto. Absolutely a must-attend event.
And everybody out there listening, yes, we are going to talk about HAARP next week. We're going to have an individual who's been studying it, teaching about it at universities, and has been on a variety of shows that I'm sure you may have seen him on, and we're looking forward to that. Tomorrow is LEAP Day, L-E-A-P, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Make it a point to tune in. And as always, the next time you hear me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
The money.